Yeah, I think in the morning we already talked a lot about corporations, so we are very, very happy to have two persons from big corporates who are exactly responsible for these corporations. And yeah, I think everyone knows in this room that there's not this high level of confrontation anymore between startups and incumbents. I think we all know that we are now in the age of cooperation. So maybe we start with you, Andreas. What is your experience like of the maybe last 5 years? How's the cooperation between established players and startups developed over the last years?
We made very good experiences in filling gaps that we had in our offering before. We did a couple of very different investments. We started with some partnerships on which were just the marketing corporations, but then we also started to integrate the partners more. In some situations also it's on a white label level, so we have a different wide tool set of how we do the different partnerships, and with that tool set that allowed us really to solve a couple of really important problems for our clients.
And what are your biggest learnings? Did you, or would you say that also you as UBS changed over the last year, so that you really had a change of the mindset, for example?
Yeah, we had to change quite a bit because the company was kind of very experienced in dealing with the IBMs and the likes. So kind of one big company partnering with another big company, and one big department and lots of processes, with processes on the other side. With startups, that's obviously very, very different. If in a typical situation, we would have more people working on a specific situation than the startup would have in total. And so obviously, we had to change the way we would deal with such an opportunity.
Okay. Yeah, Tom, you are responsible for the global-wide digitization and innovation activities of Munich Re, and you also cooperate with lots of startups, with InsurTechs, and what are your learnings, and how would you say that Munich Re have to change over the last years?
Well, I'm going to concentrate on the first part of the question. Thanks for having me, by the way. So first of all, I would divide it in two phases, and it's more. And I don't want to bore you with how Munich Re did in preparing for all this, because you're going through the same processes and you know all that. But the market phase of InsurTech and of digitization of the insurance industry, I see in two phases. We saw an earlier phase where we saw, let's say, the customer front end concepts that were out there. Those guys who retaught us actually to talk to clients. The slices and troves and hippos and next and simple insurance and French insurance, you named them. You know all these concepts, and we were trying to find out, okay, how are these redefining the insurance industry, and what is interesting for us, and what's our positioning in there. These were more global, more general concepts. Now we're going into a phase where we see microservices and functionalities coming up, AI-based, picture recognition, behavior-based, genomics, you name it, where there are startups very technology-oriented, even more probably than those in the first phase, where they are focusing really on one part of the value chain and one functionality of the value chain. And to work with these is a new challenge for us, because we need to provide them with an ecosystem, provide them with data also, provide them with a thinking that allows them to, on the one hand, develop their own services and what they're trying to build, and on the other hand, so they're finding a context where they can apply it, and we need to prepare a context where these functionalities fit in. And that is very exciting. It's very challenging, which is good, because if it weren't challenging, everyone could do it. But that is something that we now need to prepare for, and that's not only an IT architectural challenge, but also a mindset challenge. Because for us, I mean, we're a company that has been thinking for the last 140 years that we're the coolest guys around and we know everything. And now we need to admit that we don't, and we need to bring other technologies in. And that is, mindset-wise, interesting.
Okay, so do you think that Munich Re will be in the future rather still a risk carrier, or will you be a technology or tech company?
Don't ask that question. I've been asked that question before, and I said, "Oh, we're going to be a tech player," and then our communication departments came and said, oh, "You're not supposed to say that." So I'm not saying this, but I think that knowing how to play tech and really being a real partner in building technology will be a decisive competitive criterion in the future. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
I've got 3 kids to feed, so you understand.
And Andreas, what about UBS? Do you think you will be still a bank or you would call yourself, or you would still call UBS still a bank in 10 or 20 years, or is it a combination of bank and tech?
I guess we would call us a bank. But I would also say that we were always in tech. I mean, I think something which is different when you compare, I don't know, for example, a media house and a bank, is that we had techies for a long time, and we had many of them. And actually, I would say it's not the majority of our employees in tech, but it's I think something like a third at least. Mm-hmm. So I think the question is more, what kind of tech are we?
Mm-hmm. Besides the cooperation between startups and incumbents, we also see more and more the cooperation between 2 big corporates. I think the buzzword is the cross-industry cooperation, and I think one very interesting field for banks, but especially for insurers, is the field of IoT. Where do you see the potential there, Andreas? And I think Tom can add a lot more because of the acquisition of Relayer some month ago.
Well, let him answer first before he
we also looked at we did a couple of proof of concepts in the IoT space. What it turned out is that often the thing we could add was on the payment side. And kind of the payment business is something we typically do in Switzerland, so in a small country. So I think for a bank like UBS, kind of this piece is probably quite difficult to address. Mm-hmm. That's why I give to Tom.
Our focus in IT is on industrial IT. So everything which is what we've got, as probably some of you might know, a primary insurance brand, which is called Ergo, and they're focusing on smart insurance, smart home IoT, and that kind of stuff. But when we're looking at industrial IoT, I was quite impressed by Julian Teike, who showed us very passionately that the insurance industry and the insurance product is going to move into risk mitigation, risk prevention, rather than really providing the customers with a financial product / money at the end of the day. The same applies for cyber, for example. I mean, you just don't want it to happen. You can't afford it to happen, even if there's someone who will pay you for some money in the end. So in order to do that, in order to understand it better, we thought, I wouldn't phrase it that we teamed up with other industry players like Porsche or KUKA or Bosch or some of the others. We had to bring, because what they are providing is really the industrial production knowledge of how to build production sites. So if you want to avoid business interruption, if you want to predict the risk of business interruption, you have to talk to someone who really knows about this. So probably startups are not the right ones. But we had to bring startup and new technology in as well. So Relayer is part of this, for example. So they're doing things that we're probably on our own. It would have taken us so much time to develop this. And this triangle, we hope is going to be one that gives us an opportunity to really provide risk mitigation technology to supply chains or to production sites, rather than at the end a mere product that is covering the financial results.
Okay, cool. Yeah, when we have one large bank and one very large reinsurer here on stage, I think I have to ask about one of the hype topics of the last month or 2 years, which is bancassurance. It's also one of our focus we have here at the conference. I think it's a very old, it's a very traditional way of cooperation. Do you think it makes sense when we lift it on a digital level? Is it really a game changer in your opinion? We start with you, with the bank.
I could imagine.
But it's bank assurance. So
I could imagine. I mean, bank assurance was a huge topic. I would say 20 years ago. I remember when banks were kind of in Switzerland buying insurance companies, and there was a lot of hope that this would work, and it did not work at all. So in the end, kind of the banks that bought insurances sold them again. And I think there were a couple of reasons, but I think the main reason was culture. That basically the sales people in the bank and the sales people in the insurance companies, they functioned completely different. From an incentive point of view, but also from a knowledge point of view, what they would be comfortable to sell. Now, why could this now be different? And I see a couple of things why this could be different. So some insurances you can sell without having a client advisor. You can just sell digital. We have also lots of data that allows us to create new products that are maybe easy to sell. Or another thing is technology is also something that supports client advisors quite a bit. So kind of a client advisor with a notepad is different from a client advisor that basically comes with a tool. So that can also help them to sell insurance products. Or it can also be that, for example, video allows kind of to bring in experts in situations where it's getting trickier, something that in the past was also not possible. So I see a lot of things that technology could bring to the situation that were not around 20 years ago. So I think we will see that. The question is a little bit how relevant will it be? So if you then really look at the size, so is that really significant? And maybe also question a little bit of focus. So if you're on a bank and you're in the middle of kind of transforming the business, is that the first thing you do, or is it the second, or is it the 10th thing? So it's probably in the end rather a prioritization question, but per se, I think that's 2.0 is different than 1.0.
Yeah, Tom, for example, I think from the reinsurance business model, you're pretty far away from bancassurance. But what is your industry perspective on that topic?
Well, as you say, as reinsurers, we're terrible at understanding retail clients. So we're not good at that. Yet we're quite good at understanding data, we think. That's probably the analogy to what happened 20 years ago, because that was the first time that people really, when insurers and banking industry tried to come together and sell things together, and insurance people were very surprised about the depth of client data that bankers actually collect and use. And then they thought, okay, we can do the same thing, but they didn't have the technology. And I think AI-based systems that really try and understand the correlations between on a pure data-centric basis, not looking at the client, but on a pure data-centric, the correlations between the products, and then try to really cross-sell them and make bespoke propositions to the client. That is now the next. That is the opportunity that is around, and that's why probably bancassurance is being revived. It has been seeing a revival in the last 2 to 4 years. Yet there's one downside is probably that insurers and bankers both sometimes are a little biased in combining the two products, and the client might be sensitive to this.
Can I challenge you a little bit on your first statement that you don't know the clients? And I just challenge you with one question. Yep. I mean, how much does Goldman Sachs understand about the credit card business?
Well, you're probably a better place to answer that question. And and I've learned that rhetoric questions you don't give an answer to. So I'll try to be I'll try to be disciplined.
Okay, then I'm trying to make my point directly. So I mean, Goldman Sachs was an institutional play, and suddenly they are kind of going into retail. So they basically, I guess, they are building up a retail, state-of-the-art retail proposition. And so the question kind of I have to you, are you sure that the reinsurance company is not able to kind of build up also a kind of a, you know, top-notch retail proposition, maybe for something like, for somebody like an Apple or like an Amazon?
Yeah. Two things to this. First of all, how on a scale from 0 to 10, how successful do you think Goldman Sachs has been in doing this?
We don't know yet.
Okay, exactly. So that's one. And I like your question because we're thinking around this. We're doing a lot of thinking around this. But our answer to this is, yes, we're moving ahead in the value chain. Yes, we're doing more. Yes, we want to be closer to the client. But yet we think that digitization gives us the opportunity to team up with guys who are really redefining this and who are, so it's good old reinsurance that we're doing, but just in a technology manner. So 50 years ago, we were talking to the best distribution channels that were out there in the different markets and saying, how are you selling the products? And if you want to bring it onto our balance sheet, do. Now we have to provide them with more. If you talk to Hippo or to Next, you have to provide them with something that they're interested in and that they really can, beyond capital, because the former discussion was an interesting one about strategic partnerships. Strategic partnerships is not about capital. It's about what is the data that we were giving them. Do we understand their products? Do we give them sandboxes, use cases? That's what it's about. And if we're good in that and providing them, then we will move much forward in the value chain. But probably we're not going to speak to the client directly.
So it's again a question of prioritization at the end.
Yeah, Tom, you already talked about teaming up, and besides your function at Munich Re, the global function at Munich Re, you're
nice Freudian one, Global Re. Doesn't that sound nice?
You're also chairman of the InsurTech Hub in Munich, an association of around 15 insurers where you want to team up with these new players. How important for Munich Re is to have a very well working ecosystem in Munich?
Well, for us, for Munich Re, it's the opportunity to. Well, we've got head offices in Schwabing, and it's around the corner, and we much more easily can bring teams to Werk 1 and have them work with even early seed startups that we probably would not work with if they were in Tel Aviv or in Beijing or in Silicon Valley. So for us, it's just a shortcut to something that that is needed from a technology point of view, but also from a cultural point of view. And it's organized by the InsurTech Hub, who's doing a great job in putting together accelerator programs and mentoring these guys and making sure that we've got a good selection. We had 160 applicants for the last batch, so they're all coming to Munich in order to meet clients and technology firms. So for us, it's just because Munich is not known or is not named as the first capital when you're talking about which are the tech hubs, but it's one of the first names that come up when you're talking about insurance hubs. Mm-hmm. So we're attracting technology to come in, and for us it's just instead of hopping on a plane to Tel Aviv, you're going on the S-Bahn and you're there.
Okay. As we are almost running out of time, maybe one last question for both of you, and maybe you just follow my sentence. You're happy with your company if in 5 years we are at what stage, what status? Maybe with you, Andreas?
If we still fulfill our clients' needs at the best level possible.
Okay. And Tom?
Oh, God. I'm going to say something that communication is going to be very unhappy about again. Honestly, I'm never going to go into a panel session with you again. That's pretty clear. I think I'm happy when we proved that we are a real partner for technology digitized concepts. If we're on that end and we have put together real concepts that fly. We have a lot of things underway. I think we're doing well, but I mean the unicorn is not yet there. But in 5 years' time, we will see 1 or 2.
Okay. So yeah, thank you very much, both of you, and yeah, wish you still a nice conference.